Welcome to Qatar KickAround, the nightly wrap-up and discussion of the day's action in the 2022 World Cup. From the group stage to the final, our team is here, keeping you on top of the world's most watched sporting event. Brought to you by Westwood One Sports.
Howdy-ho, and welcome to the penultimate episode of Qatar KickAround, our daily recap and discussion of the action at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Hi, it's me, Peter, right there, tagging along with the man that knows more about the World Cup than the President of the United States, Andy Swift.
Howdy, howdy.
And way over yonder is our very good friend based in London, live from there, Lars Sivert. Hey, Lars. Why is Lars muted? I don't know. Now you're unmuted, Lars. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's very kind
He's
of you.
He's been trying to mute you since day one.
I thought I had unmuted you.
Finally
I will not be silenced.
For those watching live, we're in
I think I also know more about the World Cup than the President of the United States.
Oh, ouch.
Thought you were underselling Andy's prowess there.
Oh.
I don't know. I was just coming up with something different to say this time.
I think he's just found out after 29 days of this that it's like not all it's cracked up to be, the knowledge.
It is very good. Okay, so here's how today is going to go. We will get into the third place game of the day, Croatia and Morocco. And the last segment of the show today will be kind of a peek look at 2026. Because it's not even 4 years away, kids. It's 3.5 years away before the next World Cup, which may be the one silver lining to having the World Cup in the winter is that the next one is even closer. So we'll do that. But first, I think what everybody's talking about, what everybody's thinking about is tomorrow's big final. France and Argentina.
Yes.
Why did I blank out on that for a second? I looked at Andy and he looked at me funny and I couldn't think of the word Argentina.
Because before we get to the game,
that's what it was.
To the game,
it's time now. Shoot, man, I was going to get an email and a text from my friends at soccer90.com who has lined my pockets with promotional money because it's time now for Professor Andy's World Cup trivia.
Well, speaking of tomorrow's match, both the leading contenders to win the Golden Boot, that's the leading scorer of the tournament, will be playing in the final. Messi and Mbappe both have, 5 apiece?
Yes.
So they're both vying to, and then the people right behind them, the players right behind them, are also playing in the match. So the Golden Boot winner will have played in the game. Won't necessarily play on the winning team. But we got an interesting suggestion for a trivia question from one of our listeners, Edward. I thought the trivia question was a really, really good one. So
did you know the answer to this question?
I did not. I had to look it up.
Edward stumped Professor Andy.
Well, I actually guessed in my head, and I guessed wrong. And then when I looked it up, I saw that
Okay, wait a second. So does that mean this is actually listener Ed's World Cup trivia brought to you by Soccer90.com?
Yes,
Loris, we've got a flip there. Maybe they'll have to.
and if he got me, I thought it was a really good one, right?
Yes, absolutely. All right, so what's the question?
All right, so clearly this year's, this World Cup's Golden Boot winner will have played in the final. But before this one, when was the last time then the Golden Boot winner actually played in the World Cup final? The last World Cup. And who was it? Guy that won the Golden Boot. What World Cup was that? And what team did he play for? And what final was it? I'll even go one further, if you can, for bonus, the last Golden Ball winner. Golden Ball is the MVP.
Right.
Last Golden Ball winner to be on the winning team of the World Cup, the championship team.
That's the bonus question?
When did that last happen? Yeah, or both can be equal. Both are equal questions.
Well, we'll get listener Ed's World Cup trivia question answered in part 3 of today's show. But first, tomorrow, 9 a.m. Dallas time, 10 Eastern, whatever time that equals way over there in London parts. We're finally here, guys. We've made it all the way. We're still alive. It is the World Cup final, France and Argentina. And somebody, because, all the media outlets are clearly making hay with all the different things or, different storylines and stuff. But one of the ones that I thought was most interesting, because I hadn't realized this, it is the betting company William Hill. Are you familiar with? Well, I don't. I know they're not your betting company,
No,
Lars, but is it okay?
Superior betting companies are available.
So they have a thread on
Particularly
Twitter
one
that talks about all the potential records that Messi will or may break with his appearance tomorrow, including most World Cup games, most World Cup minutes, most World Cup assists, major tournament goals, Cup goals plus assists, first to score in the last 16 semifinal and final, oldest to score a World Cup hat trick, and first to win Gold Cup Golden Ball twice.
So nobody scored round of 16, quarters, semis, and final.
He will be if he scores tomorrow, he will be the first player in World Cup history to have scored, and plus he scored twice in I think the round of 16.
Yeah,
that's pretty remarkable.
So is that pretty good?
That is pretty good. So Lars, does this cement the major storyline surprisingly about Messi tomorrow? Is this all about Messi?
Listen, for Argentina, it's an awful lot about Messi, and that's by design. That's a feature, not a bug. They've finally managed to make a team around Messi that Messi can carry in the way an incredible player like him, you could argue, should have been doing all along with Argentina, but haven't always done, because it hasn't always worked. And it is working now the way it should. They've filled the team with workers and some younger legs as well around him, and given him a platform to do his stuff. And that's some impressive stats there. I have to say, you're padding a little bit if you're adding most games and most minutes. I mean, those two will usually
go hand in hand.
Usually go hand in hand, I would argue.
Well, no, because you could say you were on, because I bet the games is you're in the 18. And you didn't sub out.
No, it must be when you're on the pitch, surely.
Okay, well, maybe you meant most minutes is you didn't get
subbed all the
You're
time.
not Buffal and get subbed out at the 63rd minute
true.
game after
That's true,
game.
it's true. If it was Buffal, he would maybe not have both of these. But I don't think Sofiane Buffal is ever getting there.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because at the same time we've got Messi in this, but we also have what may be an incredible storyline about the French and specifically Mbappe, who is kind of on this weird parallel path to Pele.
Yeah, I mean, France could be the first country since Brazil, 58 and 62, to repeat as World Cup champions. Huge feat. And Mbappe could win his second World Cup before the age of 23 or by the age of 23, just like Pele had done. I mean, I don't know. Those are – look, when it comes to tomorrow, who is more motivated to win? You can't ever say a professional is not motivated to lift the trophy. All professionals are always motivated to go and win the game. But they're just – I don't know if there's a little extra something in those Argentinians that want to rally around – the guy that they're supposed to give this trophy to, because they will all either be the guys that won it with Messi, or the guys that couldn't get it done for Messi, right?
Yeah,
exactly. A team of Higuains.
Right.
We talked about that last night on the radio show, Lars, which is, these guys all want to, they've all been professionals, and they all play at very high levels, but to be able to run around the world for the rest of their lives and say they were on the team that helped Messi win the World Cup is something that they could add it just has to mean so much to those guys potentially.
Yeah, and I know it sounds weird saying that, and that would mean more than just saying I won the World Cup, but there is something to it. There is something to it, and I think there has seemed to be more of a sort of an emotional energy behind and around this Argentinian team going through the tournament. It's more of a the French have been kind of getting it done without looking super convincing all the time, whereas with Argentina, there's been this sort of thing where the team initially struggled, and we forget just how nervy the Mexico game was, where there was a real prospect of them going out in the group stage is something that could have happened, and then Messi turns up and saves them. And you guess, oh yeah, okay, that went well. And then you knock out Poland, and then sort of step by step, they've had to really push for it. And there is an emotion around the team. I'm struggling to put it into words, which is bad on an audible medium, but there's something about there's something about the emotion around the team. The fact that they've been celebrating like madmen, the fact that they've been staying in the dressing room longer after the games than other teams, the fact that they've been really sort of been carried along almost by that sort of emotional power of it. It's a strange thing.
I agree with Lars. It's hard to put into words what we're seeing, but with France, what we're seeing is a more or less even-keeled team throughout the tournament. Not a lot of great peaks, not a lot of valleys, just a team that has been consistently just getting along and doing what they need to do to get to the next round. So in terms of consistency, much more consistent than Argentina. Argentina started off really bad. The loss against Saudi Arabia, we were all like, man, are they even going to get out of the group? The nervy game against Mexico where it was going to be decided if or not they got out of the group. And then they started to find themselves. And I think in body language, we started to see it where it was tense at first and Messi glaring at his teammates. And we saw some of that old Argentina national team vibes, right? Where Messi would get frustrated with his guys and the guys couldn't do it, where it suddenly started to come together. And I think that's part of the emotion that we saw is like a little bit of relief, like, man, they sensed that they were starting to click. Yeah. And it just kind of like, okay. The last game they played against Croatia, it was almost like you saw them having fun. They were I mean, it was 3-0 at one point, right? And so that always makes it fun when you're winning by that much. But I think the body language was body language that we really hadn't seen from that Argentina early on.
Yeah, I do. And I think what I was getting at, I think what it was earlier in the tournament, particularly against Mexico and to an extent against Holland and also against Australia, really, they were playing as if losing was the end of the world. They were playing as if this was the last football game any of them were ever playing, for better or worse, both in terms of the sort of urgency and the effort, but also the nervousness that comes with it. The fear of losing it seems very heightened with them in a strange way, with the exception of Croatia, when it was so going to plan and everyone just seemed delighted, and that's kind of interesting, that dynamic, how that builds into the final. And also just, I think you can make a strong case that they've gotten better in every game they've played, which makes it kind of hard to predict this game, because I think on paper, like the betting markets have it at just exactly 50-50. I think on paper, France looked like a marginally stronger team to me. But there's something about how Argentina have just taken it up a notch for every single game they've played that makes me think there's something slightly irrational going on with them.
It is hard to talk about or kind of think about how this game's going to play out, because we are dealing with two teams that are not, the French don't want to press and the Argentines don't really press a lot, if at all, So these are going to be two teams that are, it's going to be a very 50-50 game of possession, I think, for long periods until somebody scores. I don't see this playing out as a
3-2.
A goalless draw.
Okay.
I don't see it going as a goalless draw.
Okay.
But I also don't think it is a high-scoring game either. I think this is going to come down to a game of very specific moments, and it may be a set-piece type goal or a corner kick. I guess that's a set piece, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and Lars, yesterday I was asking Peter, or just making the observation, that Mbappe, as he pushes forward with the ball and on attack, there's a lot of space left behind on his side, right? And that's the space that Messi loves to exploit when he plays against a team that leaves space on that side. So that, maybe it comes down to like which force gives in first.
Well, and additionally, Theo Hernandez, the lesser defensive-minded brother.
Right, on that side.
Yeah, so this is where I'm trying to come in, because I want to do something I haven't really been doing so far at this tournament, and that is talk about team news and the latest fitness updates and stuff. I've been a very bad Europe-based correspondent for you guys.
But that's okay. The tournament's in Qatar.
Exactly. I'll make an exception for you now and say that the latest from the France camp, according to very reputable French outlet L'Equipe, is that all 24 players trained Saturday evening, but so there's been some flu stuff going around, but they're all healthy enough to train. But the big but is this: Olivier Giroud is a bit of a doubt. He is feeling discomfort in his knee.
Your sweet prince?
What?
He is having some trouble with the knee. And
Yeah,
so
he did bend it up on that one. There was that sequence where he landed on it or bent up his knee underneath him pretty good.
So he's not 100% certain to start. And what they were trying in the training session on Saturday was a system with Marcus Thuram plays, which is basically how they ended up playing it at the end against Morocco. Thuram comes in, probably plays out wide, and then you push Mbappe up front. Now, first of all, Mbappe doesn't love this. Mbappe absolutely adores playing with Giroud. In fact, he wants PSG to sign someone who's tall and handsome as well, so he can play with someone like that for his club
and
team
have
as well.
little love moments like we saw.
Exactly right. He likes to have a big focal point up front, so he can drift around a little bit more. But he might be moved up front. However, that would mean that you have Marcus Thuram, who's not the second coming of Dirk Kuyt, but he is at least a wide player who's prepared to put in some hard yards and prepared to work backwards a little bit. And so I think there are interesting tactical implications if that switch happens. Obviously, Giroud is having a great tournament, so losing him is negative. It could have a slight negative impact on Mbappe's performance because it pushes him into a slightly unfamiliar role. But you're exactly right in flagging up that the real sort of tactical flashpoint of this game, I think, is that French left side, which is so terrifying going forward, but not as impressive going backwards. Theo Hernandez is not a good defender at left back. There's a reason Deschamps never trusted him for years and years, and he would not be playing now if his brother was fit and healthy. So he's not a good defender, and Mbappe usually doesn't defend much. And it's that space that Leo Messi likes to eat. So that's one to look out for. Whether we see the usual lineup, whether they try to give Giroud as many minutes as he's able to, or if they want to bring in Thuram, knowing that also maybe helps them a little bit defensively.
All right. So I think we all agree, Lars, that Messi's performance in the last game was prime quality chef kiss Messi 2022, right? And it's a level that I don't think we had seen previously in this tournament. And he's of such quality. The question is, if Messi plays as well, if not better, tomorrow for Argentina, is that unto itself the difference maker in this game?
I think it's likely to be, and I think it's going to have to be, because what we saw with, the English were freaking out about Mbappe in the week leading up to the France game. Every day, every sort of radio hit, everything that was going on was like, how do we stop Mbappe? How do we stop Mbappe? The paradox is they kind of did, but they were undone by other means. With Argentina, I think if you do stop Messi, I'm not sure what the other means are. There aren't as many players aside from Messi that you're afraid of in that team, as well as much as Julian Alvarez has looked sharp and all that. But Messi really is the force behind this team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Messi's presence makes them be better. But at the same time, if Messi has a good game, but other guys around him don't perform, is that enough? I don't know.
No.
Not against France.
Well, and one of the interesting kind of very quiet thing that's happened over the last two French games is, against the English and then against Morocco, is Mbappe didn't have his best games. And minus that one moment against Morocco where he kind of split the entire Moroccan defense and that deflected shot went to his teammate for the goal, he really had a quiet game. And he had a quiet game the game before. And if we're focusing on the two stars of this team, one is trending even, maybe slightly down, and the other one is clearly trending up. And I just wonder if that's where we're going to see some of this game play out tomorrow.
But who has been the real star when France has the ball?
Yes. Yeah, that was a whole other thing I was going to get to in a minute. But I just wanted to we keep talking about, because we're going to get to Griezmann, because I agree with you.
But that's part of that, what you're talking about. He factors in that, because it doesn't have to be Mbappe doing what Messi's doing, because Griezmann has been having, top 3 player in this tournament. Yeah. Right? I mean, no?
Lars?
No, and it's a really interesting point you make, that he's actually been not great in the last 2 games. And as much as he prefers playing with the focal point up front so he can drift around. He doesn't want to be the pivot, as they say in French, though that kind of means something else in other football languages. The point is, he wants someone else up there as a reference point. You also wonder, in this game, in this one game, this final, just having him make runs and sort of put him right up front and tell the midfielders to try to find him in space whenever they can, and have him try to make runs in behind Otamendi. That seems like something that should work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if Argentina has been training to do something else defensively with him and with who would be playing the 9. Yeah. They'd have to adjust. They're okay. They will adjust, but it might take a little bit. But there's a stat. Well, anyway, let's finish talking about Mbappe, about Griezmann that you brought up in our chat room, which is pretty incredible. And the reason I keep bringing Griezmann up is because I think Mbappe hasn't been, like, he is the star name on that team, but he hasn't been what makes the offense tick right now.
I mean, it's been Griezmann.
His presence obviously does, right? I mean, having him on the field certainly elevates what you can do with the ball, even if he's not the focal point. But Griezmann deserves a lot of the credit for what they've been able to do with the ball.
No, totally. And I think he's been important. He's been important both with and without the ball, because I think his role in sort of in coming deep and filling in spaces is part of why you're getting away with playing an out-and-out number 9 and Mbappe and Ousmane Dembele. You have 3 guys really who don't help you much defensively, and a left back who's not good at defending. Part of why that's worked is that Griezmann is moving around, and Griezmann's also, he's showing such incredible footballing intelligence, I think, because it's there's a fine line between being everywhere and being all over the place, and Griezmann is showing such an astute understanding of the game to fill in where he's needed, to be a leader in possession and orchestrating moves. It's been a remarkable thing to see.
Is anybody surprised, or Andy, you and I talked about this last night, the surprise about the person that was appointed as the referee for this particular game? I think you thought it was going to be the English.
I did.
Michael Oliver.
Yes, right.
Not with Argentina involved, I don't think.
Yeah, Argentina and France too, perhaps, not thinking about it. And it's a Polish referee who did well in his match. I think this referee had each of these teams in one game.
Okay.
They both won the game that he was in, and that kind of factors in a little bit too. But I thought Oliver, maybe he deserved the 3rd place game. I was surprised to see.
We'll talk about the referee. We'll talk about that in a little.
I think the complicated thing about, this admin side of it much better than I do, but I think picking referees for World Cup finals, there's a layer of politics you have to be aware of that is sort of irrespective of whether the referee has done or will do a good job. But if you get a couple of contentious decisions in this game and the Argentinians look at an English referee, I think that would be potentially very problematic.
Yeah, but also another referee from UEFA. And typically what you do is you pick a referee not from that confederation, of either confederation playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it could have been the U.S. referee that was the...
He's actually the 4th official.
The 4th,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But he didn't get the middle, I think, because the last game things got a little bit heated, and maybe they thought I don't know.
Now, the last time these two teams played each other, which tournament was that? Where it was the group stage game? Were they 4-3 game?
The 4-3 game was last year.
Was that last year?
The round of 16 last year.
Oh, round of 16 last year.
And the group stage was 78.
Oh, okay, sorry. I got my matchups. So it was a wheels-off 4-3 game, as we all recall. And so I'm at the point where I want everybody to kind of make a prediction, because I don't think any of us foresee this as a 4-3 game. Lars, how do you see it playing out, do you think? And what is your prediction?
You got to remember, Argentina then was coached by Jorge Sampaoli, who's was a pretty unhinged presence on the sideline for Argentina in that tournament, and who wanted them to play with this sort of Bielsa-inspired, very high line. But
only slightly less unhinged than Maradona in the stands, with his eyes rolled back in his head.
Yeah, and you had a team with a lot of pretty slow guys and guys who didn't press a lot, and it was just not a good way of. It was just not a good model for the team, the players they had. But they did end up making this a slightly crazier game by just really taking it to France, and France kind of wanted to sit back and hit them on the counter, and they did with Mbappe, and they won in the end. I don't think it'll be like this. I think this is a much cannier and smarter Argentina team. I don't think, but of course, it's a much more likable French team. The 2018 French team was very functional. They were very solid. They kind of relied on the speed of Mbappe and set pieces to get them the goals. This is much more attack minded for all the reasons we've just discussed. I don't think it's really in this French team to just sit back and hog a 0-0 here, hoping to get a goal from somewhere. I don't think it suits them. So I think we should get a decent game. In terms of predictions, let's say 1-1 in extra time.
Okay. I guess that means you're thinking it goes to penalties?
I think you could, yeah. I absolutely think you could.
And you don't want to predict penalties yet?
If it goes to penalty, I think Argentina has it. Martinez is a very good penalty stopper.
Okay.
Without Giroud, what?
Yeah,
like I didn't think, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, it makes me rethink of it. Like yesterday, I'm rethinking my prediction from yesterday. Are you going to stick with yours? Peter last night predicted PKs, Argentinian PKs, right?
Yeah.
Are you sticking with that?
I would say if Giroud's healthy and starts, I would stick with that. If Giroud doesn't start, then I think Argentina wins it like in regulation or added time or something like that.
But this is where I'm crazy. I think as much as I love my sweet prince, I think if Giroud doesn't start and they play Thuram on that wide role, I think that flank will be a little bit less exposed to Messi. So I think that could tighten the game a little bit, but that might be me overthinking things.
Well, I think if there's an opportunity to hedge your bets towards Argentina, it is the Theo Hernandez Messi matchup.
Yeah.
That is
that's the
direct. That's the direct.
He's going to clown him at least once, and he might score on that.
If he could do that to Gvarvidal for Croatia, imagine what he's going to do to Hernandez.
Yeah.
But
if it's Thuram on that flank and Mbappe up front instead of Mbappe at that flank, at least you have a winger who's going to help you out occasionally. Whereas Mbappe is just going to leave him one-on-one on Messi the whole game.
Yeah.
So that's but it's a really interesting matchup.
Who's the midfielder that's been playing kind of behind Messi for Argentina? Because I think if you're talking about the difference between Thuram and Mbappe, that's the player you have to be worried about for kind of helping cover. Because if that guy makes overlapping runs behind Messi, that's where that becomes a problem for that. If that winger isn't tracking back, I don't know who that player is for.
It'll be Rodrigo De Paul.
Is it McAllister or De Paul?
McAllister is more on the other side.
Okay.
You're right, but I think it's more a case of you kind of need two people to stop Messi.
Sure.
It's Rodrigo De Paul on that flank, but he hasn't been doing an awful lot, whereas McAllister is on the other side. We'll see. I probably overthink the tactical stuff, and what it'll come down to is who can convert their chances. I mean, that's what it is in World Cups. But I think it's still fascinating to talk about these things.
Hold on, let me ask a question. Is it possible tomorrow that Argentina switches to a back three instead of playing four in the back, or B, is it possible Di Maria ends up getting switched in, and you've got Alvarez and Di Maria left and right, and Messi moves more centrally?
I think both of those things are possible. I'd be a little bit surprised. I think it's more likely that Di Maria starts if he's fit, because he is, he's a big guy for them. And I think they probably know. I mean, you'd probably have Di Maria on the right side, so you have a sort of a Messi Di Maria double up against that vulnerable French left side. That makes sense to me. Going to a back three, I'd be a little bit surprised if that happened.
Okay. Just wondered. I didn't mean to bog everybody down, but...
No, it's interesting.
I've gone back and forth so many times on my prediction. I really have. Yesterday on the show, I said PKs, France, just to be contrarian to Peter, just to be different. Even though
this is the honest pod, so you have to
right. No, and I'm being very honest right now.
We're not a hokey radio show.
No, part of me is like, you know what? It's going to be like 1-0 or 2-1, and the goal is going to be scored by random guy. It's not going to be Messi. It's not going to be Giroud. It's not going to be Mbappe. It's going to be random guy.
One of the Argentina fullbacks.
Yeah, something like that.
Exactly. We never talk about ever.
Yeah.
Right. I here's in my brain, I just have for several weeks now just been playing out the scene of Messi. The image of Messi lifting the trophy just is embedded in my brain, and I don't have that same scene of a French player doing it. And so I'm just convinced one way or the other, whether it's in regulation, added time, or PKs, I've convinced myself that Argentina is going to win this thing because that's the way it's supposed to be. But
you picked Argentina PKs, Lars, right?
Yeah. No. The reason I'm thinking about that really is if you look at if it goes to penalties, bear this in mind. Hugo Lloris. This doesn't include shootouts, but as a goalkeeper, he has faced, out of the penalties he's faced, he has saved 17 and conceded 94, whereas Emiliano Martinez has saved 10 and conceded 23. Like, Emiliano Martinez...
Man, Harry Kane did not want to hear that stat from you, Lars.
No, Martinez has saved like a third of the penalties he's come up against, or at least
just better at it.
Yeah, so no doubt. If it goes in Argentina, 5 out of 6 PK in history. And
Martinez is going to break out the most world-class mind game bit.
Yeah. So this is the deal.
He's unusually good at penalties, and the sample size
he's
is
a
big
mind
enough.
game guy.
Yeah.
We're practically tied in terms of predictions. Lars is winning the who wins. I'm in second. Peter's third. Peter's winning the exact score. He's in first. I'm in second. Lars in third. When you add it all up, we're basically even. You guys pick Argentina. I'm going with France. So there can be a winner one way or the other.
Wow.
2-1 extra time.
Okay.
There,
Lars. So you and I are on Argentina penalties. I'll take Argentina in. Screw it. I'm going to take Argentina in regulation. 2-1.
Any of these predictions could be right. They're all a coin flip.
Yeah, it really is. Usually with these things, I'll check what the betting markets are saying and then go with the favorite, unless I have an overwhelming reason not to do. But here the betting markets are saying 50-50. So.
Goodness. All right, 9 a.m. Dallas time tomorrow. It is the big show, the big game, France-Argentina. Will it be as scintillating as today's third-place game? We discuss Croatia and Morocco next. Here's part 2 of our penultimate episode of Qatar KickAround. Yes, there was Football World Cup action today as Morocco and Croatia took off for the third-place game. And one of the big lessons that I have, and I always have to remember this every time we get to this point of the tournament, is I'm like everybody else, and I goof on the third-place game, and nobody cares about the third-place game. It's just a big, stupid waste of time. And then you realize...
That's uncanny. That's so close to my voice. It's very good.
He was imitating you, Lars.
That's very much what I said.
That's what us Americans think you sound like, Lars. Is you know what? It does mean something. And especially in a game like today, where the two teams that are playing it are not superpowers that are pouty about the fact that they didn't make the final. They're maybe more so Morocco than Croatia, that they're like if the United States was in that game today and had an opportunity to be the third place team in a World Cup, I'd be out of my mind excited about that.
Right. And I think you'd be surprised how much Croatia was behind going for this third place too.
Because
I have to hold my hands up. I was wrong about that. I did not think they would be as interested in it as they was, but clearly that was completely wrong.
Well, that's man of you to admit, Lars, because it's funny. Landy, you certainly don't forget this. Lars, you probably don't either because you live on that side of the globe. But the realization that Croatia has only been around for 30 years as a country, but has now participated, I think I'm correct, 7 World Cups.
Correct. And
in 7 World Cups, they've been to the finals once and they've gotten third place twice.
Right.
That's an amazing feat when you think about all these other footballing nations that have never gotten even close to that. Or if you're the United States, that would be a dream record for a country like us. And we were in the original World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, and today, too, you add the element of Modric's last game, probably with the national team. And I think a little bit like the Argentine players want to rally around Messi and that whole thing. I think there was a little bit of that today as well. He didn't have his best game, but he played 90 minutes. And I think, it was nice for him to get this medal at the end of the day, because in the third place game, only one team gets to go up on the stage and receive their medal. The other one just goes to the locker room.
Yeah, Lars, it was not a bad game. It was an entertaining Saturday watch of a football match. It was a good game, and they both went at it.
Yeah, I had fun watching this, and I had a strange feeling because since we had basically had 2 days off now, I found it kind of hard to get the football brain going again. It was like an engine that wouldn't quite sort of, I sat down watching this. It felt weird after being completely attuned to everything for the whole tournament. I was like, I feel out of sync now, but I got into it, and it was enjoyable. Helped by the fact that things happened so fast, that we got 2 goals in the first 10 minutes
by center backs, no less.
And I think part of the fun today too, and it's known, it's like with less pressure of a loss, like what a loss means. I think guys can show more of their individual skill and more of their flair and just take more chances. And it makes for a nicer spectacle to watch. And I think that's where Croatia had a little bit of an advantage over Morocco. Individually, the Croatians are very good players, very skillful. Mm-hmm. And today they got to do their thing, without any restraints. And I think it probably led to them winning the game.
Like I said, it's clear that this game mattered more to the players than it sometimes has with other teams in the past. Mm-hmm. It's clear that it mattered more, especially to Croatia, than I thought it would. But I thought it was also clear that you didn't have the kind of pressure that you would in a semifinal. People weren't as afraid to do stuff, I thought. Mm-hmm. And that made for a very entertaining game if you took the time to watch it. Yeah. We've already done this, but the praising of Croatia, you have to just also remember, like, this is a country with roughly the same population as the state of Oklahoma. Like, it's pretty incredible that they keep producing incredible players like they have.
By the way, it's 7 World Cups since they were a country. They've qualified for 6 of them, and in those 6, they've been top 3 times.
That's even more amazing.
Slightly more people than Utah, slightly fewer people than Oregon.
There are more people in the Dallas-Fort Worth area than there is in the nation of Croatia.
Yeah, it's amazing.
True fact.
This is a team that is younger, collectively than the one that got to the final in 2018. So there's a little bit of like thinking, okay, it's not over with these guys. There's a little bit of a transition. So,
hey,
lovely goal by Mislav Orsic,
yes.
And I loved someone on the popular social media network site Twitter pointed out that Mislav Orsic is the one non-African player who plays the most like an African player. And I just think that's a great, because there's something about how he's very quick and skillful, but also quite chaotic in his approach to the game. And this was an African person who said this, I should stress. That's and there was an African insider or something like that. But, you could totally imagine him, if he had a different skin color, play out wide for Burundi in the Africa Cup of Nations, but just because of his sort of freewheeling approach to the game.
I was convinced that was an accidental goal that was meant to be a back post.
No.
I'm just saying, when it happened in real time, the way the ball flighted in before we got to see the replay and the way that he struck the ball, that just had that feel of the, oh my God, that's going in for a goal, but I meant to cross it to the guy at the back post. But it turned out when we saw it in real time, that's actually what he meant to do. So kudos to him for pulling that off. I did want to bring up the fact that this game, to me, I was distracted in this game for two reasons. One, it took me the entire tournament to realize, and Lars, you can just take a break here for 30 seconds while I do kit nerd talk, which is I didn't realize Nike had given Croatia left-right specific socks. Mm-hmm. So their left sock has the checkers on it, the right didn't, which makes me wonder if the kit guy has to go around and make sure everybody
they're labeled, though. I've gotten socks from other companies.
Yeah, but you know how soccer players are. I mean, is anybody
the modern
did anybody
sock is
ever
designed
get
for
it
the
backwards?
left and right foot.
I know, but you don't know that if they just put them on. If they're marked
they're
differently,
the little L and little R.
Yeah, I think you're giving people way too much credit. Okay, Lars, you can come back now. Lars left while I was talking about kit stuff.
There he's back.
Point number two.
I've gone back to sorting U.S. states by population to find out which ones
where
are
would
closer
Croatia
to,
fit in?
Yeah, slightly bigger than Connecticut.
Wow.
But it's considerably smaller than Kentucky.
Okay, I got the point. All right, point number two. How in the hell did the Qatari referee get assigned for the third place game?
That's all
politics.
politics.
It's a big mystery to me. It's hard to understand how this happened.
Okay, because the reason why I asked this question is, am I wrong in saying that the Moroccan players were way more aggressive with him than they had been with any other referee in the course of the tournament? Am I making that up?
Specifically this game, they look to be more of what is it called when you
aggressive?
Yeah, when you
surrounding the referee.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so is that because they're Arab, he's Arab, they feel like they understand each other better and they can get away with that because of that? Or am I just being a stupid American?
It's the last game. They really wanted it, and
I also think it's possible that they know he's not one of the top referees. He's the Qatari guy. He's had one game earlier.
he was mediocre. Guy. Yeah, mediocre. Now, go ahead, Lars.
And I should stress, of course, he doesn't have to be a bad referee because of that. For a very long time, the best rated referee in European club football was from Hungary. I just thought there was one flashpoint pretty early on in the game where they really mobbed him, and he was kind of weak. Like, he didn't hand out a few cards.
I think that's what
they were fizically shoving him.
I think that's Lars is right there. It's you set the tone early, right, Lars?
Yeah,
and if you allow that to happen, it's just going to escalate.
And the players, some of them might have done their research and might know that this isn't one of the big heavyweight referees. Mm-hmm. And then you try it on a little bit with him early on in the game, and he doesn't punish anyone for it, and then that just kind of
weak man manager. Can we talk about I want to bring up VAR a little bit.
Well, that's what I was going to ask Lars. Right. I wanted Lars to explain to us how in the world we never got even a look, much less a replay, much less a decision on the penalty for Croatia, because that was clearly a missed penalty.
I completely agree. That was a penalty. I don't know why it wasn't overturned.
So my question is, I know that FIFA has probably told their VAR approach this World Cup is to raise the level of when you go to watch it again, right?
Yes, Dr. Joe talked about that on the Fox. Yes, they went to Dr. Joe Matchnick, and he said the same thing.
Right. So, but this one was a clear and obvious one.
Yeah.
So if this didn't make the cut, then why VAR? Why VAR?
Why didn't?
Why have it? If this one did not, at least to go look at it.
I 1,000% agree with you. And part of me wonders, because what you have to pay attention to in that, if I think I'm remembering this correctly, the ball doesn't stop again up until the Moroccans are attacking in the Croatian box, and they have a penalty shout at the other end of the field, because it looks like it's one of those situations where there's an incident in one box, play doesn't stop, it keeps going, and you're like, is VAR going to do anything? Yet in the meantime, wait, is the other team going to score? And now their goal is going to get taken off.
Right.
And that never transpired because clearly if there was even a foul, it was outside the box.
Right.
but we never got back to that.
Was it because so much time went by?
No. They did. It will have been reviewed. 100%.
Yeah.
I think they just made a decision that it wasn't. I can't explain it, but this is fundamentally the biggest problem with VAR, which is if we as fans and as followers of the game can't trust that in that incident, even though it's a subjective decision, that the unbiased, hey, wait a second, you may want to go back and review this guy or person, can't do that,
and
then the whole thing's a giant waste of time.
What happens is when these directives come, okay, we're going to change the level at which you want to review. You want to raise the what's the word
threshold.
I'm looking for? Yeah, the threshold. Thank you. Perfect. So that directive comes down. So now, if you're the VAR official, now you're like conflicted, right? Because you have this new directive, and does this meet that threshold or not? And maybe that's part of the problem because they keep changing the thresholds for which they're expected to.
And confusingly, some referees will then have to think, well, at home in my league where I normally referee, this should have been
There's
looked
also
at.
that.
Yeah.
Do we know who the VAR official was today?
I haven't checked
Okay.
that. But lastly, before we depart the subject, I mean, the very significant VAR explainer-in-chief, Dale Johnson of ESPN, has put forward as a theory that it's possible that because there was a light contact and the player went down quite theatrically and didn't really make an attempt to stay on his legs, they might have looked at it and said, there was definitely contact, but was it the contact that caused him to fall down like he did? And if the answer to that question is no, that might have counted against.
Oh, it's a clear clip. He clipped
Yeah,
him.
no, I completely agree. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't determine the end of the game or anything, but it just gets to the fundamentals of VAR and why we have it.
Right.
And
That's what I'm saying. Why VAR if that's not going to
that was weird. So congratulations to Croatia, but really full credit to the Moroccans who have been the delight of the tournament, the real story of the tournament, and I'm sure they're all brokenhearted they didn't leave with a medal today, but it'll be fun to. We talked about this last night, Lars, is that, now after this tournament goes by, most of us in the Western world they'll kind of fall back into obscurity for most of us because we just don't watch, African national team football on the regular. And while we see some of these players play in leagues that we don't watch them as a national team. So it'll be interesting to see if we see them pop back up again here in the United States in 26.
Well, just about every national
I guess
team is going
everybody,
to make it
yeah.
to the next one.
For sure.
You could also watch the next iteration of the Africa Cup of Nations, which is going to be played in January 2014.
2014?
Wow.
That's a long time ago, Lars.
That's going to take some time travel.
It's been
go back.
2024.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Lars.
I'm just not used to pronouncing that number out loud. So yeah, 2024.
Saying you Nordic countries, man, you have it going on. You've invented time travel now.
Well, yeah. But
All right.
it's because it's been postponed. It was meant to be June, July 2023, but it's been moved to January 2024.
All right, last notes about this. Andy, will you go get your replica third place World Cup medal since you're Croatian
Sure,
fan?
why not?
Okay, all right,
To
congratulations.
go along with
Andy.
the other third place medal.
That's right. Have it framed on your. Will you get a Croatian jersey framed and hung on the wall like you do your other?
Those are championships.
Oh, wow.
Those
You're
are
so snobby.
Those are championships.
Lars, any last Moroccan notes or comments that you'd like to throw out there before we move on to the next segment?
They were very good. Good feel-good story. Didn't like their behavior towards the referee today, but aside from that, I'm glad they did well.
Well said. All right, we're going to break. When we come back, it is time to look into the future, the year 2026, and what all this has been happening over the course of the last 4 weeks means for the next one, and we'll talk about that next. Here's part 3 of the penultimate episode of Qatar KickAround. As I said at the beginning of this thing, one of the silver linings of playing the tournament for the one time in the winter means the next World Cup isn't 4 years away, kids. It's 3.5 years away. So it's closer than you think. And Andy, you know, it's funny because we've talked a lot about the anticipation of the next World Cup being played in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And we've also talked about the expectation of how it's going to be structured. But, you know, it was just a day or so ago, Mr. Infantino was talking about all of this, and he's admitted publicly that they are now reconsidering a lot of the things that we took as assumptions, which is like the multiple groups of 3, right, which we all immediately already hate for a whole host of reasons, that they're already rethinking all of that.
Yeah, so next World Cup is going to have 48 teams, and initially it was told to us that they were going to be divided into 16 groups of 3, with each group winner and runner-up advancing to the round of 32. And that way they were going to keep the maximum number of games played at 7. Every team would get two games round robin, and then you would go to a round of 32, which would be a new feature in this World Cup instead of starting at the round of 16, and the champion and runner-up would each play 7 games. But subsequently, I think even before this World Cup, I think people were starting, not us pundits, people
officials,
upstairs, yeah,
right,
we're starting to talk amongst themselves about, hey, this could present problems. I mean, we already had a situation in World Cup history where games that weren't played at the same time in the group stage led to some shenanigans between teams. Mm-hmm. The most famous game being the disgrace of Gijón, not mm-hmm. Dijon, but Gijón. Dijon is good mustard. Gijón is the city in Spain. And so they changed the format of the World Cup to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Obviously, if there are 3 teams in a group, one team would be able to wait for the other results before they play their last game, and one team would have to sit and wait for the results of that other last match, and it could create those shenanigans again. But what we also found out this World Cup, and I think Infantino saw it for himself sitting there in the stands because he was there at every match, is how exciting it can be, right? Mm-hmm. When you don't know ultimately who will advance until basically both games are over and done with. I think that created a lot of drama and a lot of excitement, and that really made him think about the format.
I think that's great, but I think it's remarkable that they ever considered going to a 3-team group, that there aren't actual football people in these administrative positions who understand why that would be stupid and bad. It shouldn't have taken yet another fascinating and exciting group stage to show these idiots that this is a good format that shouldn't be changed. It's always been good.
All right, but is part of the reason why they even got to that point in the first place is the additional complications and needed extra or added time that is going to be required for it to stay smaller groups of 4, because now you're going to have more, because of the number of teams, you're going to have more games. That's all going to get extended. The group part of this is going to get extended out.
Right. You have to have 32 advancing if you're going to have 48 countries in the World Cup. You can go from 48 to 16, but that would complicate it, and where only group winners advanced, and then you had wild cards. So you're going to have 32 advance, and it's going to add another knockout round, and it's going to make the 2 finalists play 8 games, and you're going to have to stretch the tournament by about 4 or 5 days.
Right, because if you're playing like Group A-B, now you're down to GH. IJ? Is there going to be 2 more groups, or is it still going to be
No, what you would do is have 12 groups of 4, right? And 12 and then 24 advance, and then you add 8 wild cards.
Well, how many groups of 4 do we have now?
We have 8.
Right, so that's what I'm saying.
Now you're going to have 12 groups of 4.
But right, that's what I'm saying. So the distance of time between A and B playing on day 1 versus their second round of games, and all of that's going to get, because that's going to complicate things too, is the amount of times teams have off and all of that.
Yeah, what really will extend the time is that you have a round of 32 added, because you have 3 group stage games.
Right.
plus a round of 32. That's going to be what adds time, because you can play the group stage matches where more groups play on the same day.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, the other way you only had 2 group stage matches. That's why adding a round of 32 didn't add an extra game.
I see.
So, Football Administrator head Andy, how many games do we end up with? Because it'll be just an unholy number of matches.
I don't know,
played.
but billions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. I just, as someone who usually is a completist with these tournaments, I like to try to watch every game if I can. I've watched every game except for one this time around.
Which one was that?
Oh, I missed Tunisia, Australia, because I had to go to
Farmers Market.
I had to, well, not a radio studio. It was work. I wouldn't have missed it for leisure. I missed it for work. I was told I had to go to a studio, and it got lost in transport. But Farmers Market. But I do worry that this is the last. This is the last World Cup I'll be able to do that.
To watch every game, yeah.
I think even my football brain will just melt if I have to. I think.
Yeah, it'll be something else. But the World Cup used to be 16 teams,
and the way that it's going to be scheduled this time is that the games will be largely later for guys like Lars over there. If it's here's Eastern, Central, West Coast times, those start times are going to be late for you guys.
Yeah, no, that is what it is. It's interesting the point Andy makes, but you're right. It used to be even fewer, and I'm sure people like me complained when they made it the size it is now. I just worry that. These games are just going to get lost. I mean, part of the joy of the World Cup is that even a game like Tunisia, Australia usually has a huge chunk of the world's football population watching it. And you end up, if you're Tunisian and Australian, that everyone's looking at this, even if,
Yeah, for our American audience, by the way, just a quick fact. This is for the U.S. audience. Essentially, every match played in the World Cup has the television audience of a Super Bowl. The equivalent, a worldwide audience of a Super Bowl. I mean, for an American audience, that kind of puts things in perspective. Like Australia, Tunisia, worldwide audience that exceeds the Super Bowl.
And here's the thing: I don't see how that can still be the case when.
No, it'll be more difficult. Look,
and I think that really takes something away from it.
Yeah, it was almost like since 1998 we've had this format, the 32-team, 8-group format, and it's been such a great format, right?
It's perfect.
Yeah. And I think a lot of traditionalists like us are probably saddened to see it go. But it's one of those things that trying to stop it is futile.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can write to your local FA and try to get them to raise it. But the problem is it's... And again, it's insane that we're now less than 4 years away from it, and they're still discussing what the actual format's going to be. Like, that's deranged.
Well,
that shouldn't be happening. But the reason it's happening, sorry, I'm going to go all tinfoil hat here, but this was a political decision, right? This is something Gianni Infantino brought in because then he can tell the various FAs here, look, more World Cup spots for you. Vote for me in the next FIFA election. That was the only thinking behind it, right?
Well, that's how it grew from 16 to 24 and how it grew from 24 to 32 and, why it's grown from 32 to 48 ultimately. And, I think that there are some nations that would say, it is nice that now we'll have a chance to every once in a while play in a World Cup too. We've never had that chance, or we get our chance every 24 years or something, and so they'll have a little bit of more of an opportunity. I think some people worry that we'll have some 8-0s,
Well, I mean, I was reading an article today that was like, if this World Cup had been 48 teams, here are the 48 teams that would have been in the World Cup, and you're like, holy moly!
Yes.
Well, there's some things that would have been good, but there's a lot of teams in there. You're like, man, those guys would have gotten smoked.
Yeah.
Because those are not. I'm just thinking of CONCACAF teams, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing too about the 16 teams of 3 or 16 groups of 3. One of those would have been a minnow in every one of those groups playing a giant.
Yeah.
We'll still have that, I'm assuming, if we go to 12 groups of 4. So
I'm not worried about minnows occasionally getting smoked. I'm worried about too many games between minnows and almost minnows.
Yeah.
So you'll just have a whole load of World Cup games that essentially don't matter.
Yeah. Now,
and I think that's the side.
Yeah. Now, but that don't matter. I think that's a very selfish is the wrong word, but narrow-minded view, because for those countries and for countries that are around those countries, those games matter a lot. And that's the thing about World Cup that is different from Champions League and the Euros and Copa America.
So
it's bringing all this.
So Lars, think about a Norway-Honduras match.
Yeah, it's a terrible example. We don't want that.
Okay, but you know what? Let's say Honduras, I don't know, Venezuela. That game matters a lot to those two countries.
But the whole point is that with the current format, there's enough of a scarcity of games that most games feel like they matter to people everywhere, kind of, is my naive thought here. And there'll be a lot. Of course, it's going to matter to the countries that are there. But by that logic, we can have a 100-team World Cup. I think it's very exciting for everyone.
No, but
who
I'm
gets to
saying
be there.
it won't just matter to them. It's like when Morocco played today. It mattered for, like, we talked to the our Ethiopian friend in the parking lot here, and that game mattered a lot to him. He's not.
But that may be the scarcity because of the fact that it's a rare. Yeah. I see what you're saying, Andy, but I'm with Lars in the fact that I worry that we have so many games going on with so many kind of mediocre.
The standard is going to go down. There's no doubt we're going to have games where the standard is not high. But World Cup is already a tournament where it's not just about the standard. Look at this World Cup. This is one of the talking points. We'll talk about it tomorrow when we recap. It's like, I don't. What the standard was okay, right? It wasn't anything to scream home about.
All right, but Andy, you're the World Cup expert. Do you prefer this 32-team World Cup, or do you prefer one of the older tournaments that has lesser teams in it?
No, I like the 32 because I don't like the wild card concept. And we're headed towards that to keep the 4 groups. I mean, the 4-team groups. We're headed to wild cards because you can't compare like a third place in one group, third place in another. You know, it's hard to one team got more points than anyway. That's hard, but you know, before that it was 16, no wild cards. I'd rather have 32. It's been fine. We were all scared that, man, we grow to 32, it's really going to dilute the quality of play, and we're okay with it now, right? It's not terrible. And the World Cup is so much more than just that.
I just think there are too many teams.
Huh?
I just think there are too many teams.
Right now, you think 32
no,
is too
no,
many?
no. With it's going to be in the next one.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to affect the standard. There's no doubt. I'm a traditionalist. I'd rather, it always stay at 32. But to say that it's insignificant, these games are going to be insignificant. I do have an issue with that because they are going to be significant games. They're going to be historic for large parts of the world that maybe you don't relate to.
I just think they will not matter because there'll be so many of them. Like
they're diluted. They'll matter a lot less.
Yeah. That's my point. Like, because you'll remember. Well, not everyone is a total nerd like myself and yourself. But still, most people who watch this tournament will remember something about most countries that were in it, right? That will not be the case for the next tournament.
Yeah, we're going to forget about
so
stuff.
many freaking teams.
That's why we should have 64 every 2 years. One game, you're out.
That's the point. And it's the thing. Yes, it'll be superb for maybe my country. My country hasn't been in this tournament since 1998. Maybe we'll qualify. That'll be great. But the thing is, after a while, qualifying will be less special because more teams will do it. Like,
sure. Yes, that is true.
Yeah, and what does get interesting, because we're running late, and I can't imagine how we managed. Yes, and we still have trivia. Is the fact that the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, by all accounts, aren't going to have to qualify for this, and I'm still just talking about the future. I'm still confused how those 3 nations are going to get prepared for a World Cup in a new world where the calendar is as stuffed up as it is.
Yeah, that's specific to 2026.
Yes.
But then after that, they're going to qualify, you would think, more easily. And does that affect your fandom of the national team if you think, okay, the U.S. can now just qualify for the World Cup, so it's okay? Does it make it less special?
Well, I won't have my quadrennial hexagonal ulcer that I get currently.
I think ultimately, like in 3 World Cups from now, when it's been 48, I think it'll still be special. It'll just morph into that because that's how
optimist, Lars.
That's how we roll with things. Yes, I love World Cup for so many more reasons than just the standard of play. I think it's more.
I'm not worried so much about the standard of play. I do agree with you on that. It'll be less special just because there'll be so many teams and so many games.
Yeah.
And it'll just dilute the occasion, I think, is what I'm worried about. And for me, the World Cup is all about the importance of the occasion.
Right.
Well, this vigorous disagreement about the future of the World Cup has now caused me to have to do make goods for soccer90.com because we didn't get the trivia question within the hour. So shame on both of you. Here is Professor Andy's World Cup trivia brought to you by soccer90.com.
All right. So we were going to answer this one sent in by Edward.
Oh, that's right. Ed's. Listener Ed's World Cup trivia.
I have a couple interesting tidbits. This is the first time that both finalists lost in the group stage in World Cup history. I researched that, and that was going to be perhaps one trivia question. Then also, I know, Peter, you said that since 1970, every World Cup final, Brazil, Argentina, Italy, Germany, France, Spain, and Netherlands have played in every one with the exception, I think, of Croatia.
And Spain.
Yeah, in Spain.
Right.
So there's only been one World Cup in history. That was 2010 when Spain played the Netherlands. That didn't feature Brazil, Argentina, Italy, Germany, or France.
Goodness
That's
gracious.
21 out of 22 World Cups.
It's rigged.
Had one of those in the final. All right. The last Golden Boot winner to not have won the World Cup when
In the same tournament.
in the same tournament.
Yes. Okay. So
The last Golden Boot winner to not have won it.
He won the Golden Boot in a tournament that he did not win the World Cup.
And the boot is the scoring record. Not
Yeah.
the,
I know
not-
that.
Yeah, the boot. We're going to start
What is
with
it,
the
Lars?
boot.
Because I don't know what it is.
Harry Kane, 2018.
Is that correct, Andy?
Sorry, I had it backwards. The last one
that's
to
what I
have
thought.
won. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
The last one to have won the Golden Boot and won the World Cup same year.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Harry Kane.
I still don't know.
Yeah, I'll just say.
No,
go ahead.
I want to guess.
Yeah.
Is it possible that it's Thomas Müller 2014?
No, Thomas Muller won the Golden Boot, but he did it in 2010.
Oh, okay.
James
okay.
Rodriguez won it in 2014. They also didn't win the World Cup. If you go before that, it was close. 2006 Germany. They didn't win it. It was Ronaldo in 2002.
When they won the World Cup,
Yes,
he won the Golden Ball and
He won the Golden Boot.
I get them backwards. Golden Boot and won the World Cup.
Yeah,
Okay.
last Golden Ball winner. This is the MVP and to have won the World Cup. This is crazy. The MVP of the tournament. Who was the last one to also have won that World Cup?
Cannavaro.
Maradona?
Romario, 1994.
Wow.
5 of the last 6 MVPs have lost in the final.
But who
Think
decides
about that
it?
when you
I'm
watch
very-
this tomorrow. That's the
very
technical
suspicious
committee,
of
right?
they're
Who's
all
who?
a
Who's
bunch of freaks and
Well,
weirdos.
let's go. Modric won last year's, right?
right? But hold on, because
Yeah.
we're really running long, and I don't want to drag this out too long. But I do ask the question: Who is the leading candidate for MVP Golden
it's a
Ball
great
this
question.
time?
I think that's
Who is it? Is it Griezmann?
Messi
or was
has
it?
to be.
It's if Messi wins, it would be Messi.
It'll
If
be Messi,
France
yeah.
wins, I think it might be Griezmann.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting.
Modric won it last year, the year before Messi, the year before that Forlan, Zidane, gone, all lost it. Ronaldo won it, but lost in 98. Romario won it in 94. One interesting thing, because this defenses win tournaments, not necessarily goals, right? And we saw the Golden Boot done. The Golden Glove, the best goalkeeper, has won 4 of the last 7 World Cups.
So are we making an argument that whoever wins the whoever's going to win the Golden Boot tomorrow, MVP of the tournament, is going to be the
Golden
winner
Ball.
of the World Cup?
Golden Ball. I think because there's no clear, like Modric had such a good tournament last year that it was thought he had a chance to win it. Despite losing that game, they still gave him that.
Yeah. I mean,
But this year,
could
there's-
Messi be MVP of the tournament
And
not
lose the
win it?
tournament?
Yeah, and lose the tournament.
There's a chance I think Messi might get it. What do you think, Lars?
I think the FIFA technical committee I have really no faith in at all. So whoever they
So
pick
you
as
don't know, yeah.
MVP, I don't even. We had Jürgen Klinsmann was on UK TV earlier picking Neymar in his team of the tournament. He played 3 games.
But that's
Yeah.
Klinsmann, and
If,
Klinsmann's
Yeah.
an idiot.
if this dude's on the committee, I have no interest in what the
Yeah.
committee says about anything.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
good point. By the way, Griezmann, I want to say this on the show because, Lars,
Okay.
you brought it up on the podcast. It's an amazing stat. He's played in 72 straight
Yeah,
French national team games. 72. That's
insane.
crazy. Most of them starts, not all of them. That's 72 straight games for your national team. A national team plays between 5 and 15 games a year.
Yeah,
That's insane.
Yeah.
Griezmann falls into one of those weird things that I want to talk about on the pod tomorrow about the World Cup that I love so much about the World Cup, which is ostensibly those players that suddenly produce a quality or a style or a performance that you just didn't know they were capable of because they don't ever get to do it for their club team. And he's the perfect example of that in this particular tournament. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Okay. Lars, look at you all huddled up.
It's so cold.
Yep, with your dog at your feet.
We've gone over, so I can't spend another 5 minutes talking trash about Jürgen Klinsmann, but I really want to.
we'll make
we can
that
have a separate podcast.
Yeah, we'll make that a bonus pod. How about that?
I would not buy a used car from that man.
Well, I missed you the last 2 days, Lars. I hope you have a good evening, and we will talk to you during the game in our group chat tomorrow, and then during tomorrow's final episode of Qatar KickAround.
I'm looking forward to it, guys.
Andy, thank you very much, sir. Thank you to those watching the live stream, listening to the pod. We will speak to you tomorrow for the big final. Get stuck in and win your 50s.